Hey everybody, Chris here. I'm no longer a handler because Misha's running the game going forward, so I'm just lonely old player Chris. But I'm here to say thank you to the folks who joined us on Patreon this week. We're still trying to work out exactly how we're going to thank everybody. Obviously, we've got a handful of episodes in the can, and so I think for the first couple, it's going to be myself giving you a shout out at the beginning, maybe the end, trying to figure out where I'm going to slot this all. But the main important thing here is to say thank you to the people who are supporting us. And if you're listening and wondering how you can support us, check the show notes. There's a link to our Patreon, which we started this week. Essentially, we want to be able to upgrade our equipment, get some better mics, get some better sound dampening stuff for my basement. And eventually, we'd like to be able to do a second show, running two shows simultaneously. So right now the plan is Misha is going to finish her run of Delta Green, however long that's going to take. And then after that, I'm going to run Traveler for the group. And that's going to be kind of the main shows. And then if we can get enough money on Patreon, whenever it happens, then we'll start a second show. And we're still trying to figure out what that will be. But yeah, check out the show notes. You can support us. It's $3 a month. We're not asking for a whole ton because it's more just helping us out, and if you want to do that with your money, dope. If you don't, dope. So, these are the folks we are going to thank this week, and if you're listening and you prefer me to call you by a different name, then let me know. I'm just going to use first names because I don't want to, dox people accidentally. So, let me know. We have Taylor. We have Drowrin. We have Miles. We have Randall. And we have Yam Sates. That's everybody so far. And thank you guys so much again for helping us out, putting your hard-earned money with us and liking the show. And yeah, without further ado, this week is an interview with Tom from Stories and Lies. He's the main handler. He did the first arc, and then they just finished up Static. And I don't know if he's going to be the one for the next arc or not. We're gonna have to find out together. But if you haven't checked out Stories and Lies, it's fantastic. It's earlier, like 90s era Delta Green, very well edited. They have sound effects, that kind of thing. It's very polished. It's really good. The characters are awesome, and they launched the same day we did. They exact same day, everything. So they're kind of our fellow podcast brothers and sisters and all that kind of jazz. So, without further ado, here's Tom. Get to know him. Go check out his show. Thanks, everybody. Welcome back, everybody, to another interview episode here. We had so much fun doing the last one. At least I did, because I'm the only one that does it. But I wanted to do another one, and I'm going to continue to do these things because I think it's fun to get out there and interact with other people in this community and be able to meet them and hopefully turn this audience onto them and vice versa. And I'm assuming everybody still listens to everybody because the Delta Green podcast sphere, I guess is the terminology we're going to go with, is kind of small. But anyways, my guest today is Tom from Stories and Lies. How you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good, yeah. So, I think Tom's the name I go by. Formerly, I'm Thomas. And I think on our podcast, I think we actually put me as Thomas in the line notes. Mm-hmm. I don't know how this works. I mean, it's like my birth name. So whenever I'm doing legal stuff, I put my, formal name on there. Yeah, right. I'm Tom otherwise.
I go by, I get Christopher a lot. It's like, do you prefer Chris or Christopher? It's like, I don't care.
Yeah, I don't care.
You can call me whatever name you want as long as you remember who I am. We're kosher. That's all I give a shit about. So
it's good.
So how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, recording. I was just telling you, of course, on the other side of this recording, I'm using my microphone today in the proper alignment for the first time in its entire. I bought this thing 3 years ago, like to record podcast stuff, because prior to this, I was like recording on my laptop, which we all know you can't use a laptop microphone to record stuff. No. So I bought this fancy looking mic, and I've been using it wrong.
It happens.
Forever.
It happens to the best of us. I mean, this is the first podcast I've done where I've actually had separate tracks to be able to edit, so that has been a huge bump, because doing all one track, you have to make sure it's right the first time, and if you don't, it's just it's annoying and gross. So,
I mean, you do production though, right?
For the podcast, yeah. I have no real background. I used to try to record bands back in the day when I thought that's what I wanted to do, was music producing, until I realized that it's a lot of money for school that you're not going to really get a lot of payback on. And so my dreams were dashed, and I became a business major, and slowly been trying to find creative outlets for all that. So,
I used to work in college. I worked in the theater, and I worked. I worked backstage. I worked front stage. I worked the light booth. I worked the sound booth. I worked the spot, whatever. But I was doing this. I was doing sound for a show, and it was the Christmas Carol, and it was one of the local groups had their own Christmas Carol. You know the Christmas Carol. Everyone knows the Christmas Carol. All right. And they're doing rehearsals, and we're doing, it's kind of a run through. I don't remember what was going on because I wasn't paying attention. I'm in the sound booth, they're doing stuff, and I got bored, as happens. So I put, my own CD in the CD player, and I plugged my headphones from the soundboard into the CD player just to listen to my own music because I was bored as hell. And I didn't realize, of course, that my CD player was live, and my music was playing like at a loud volume during the rehearsal. And I had the headphones on, so I'm hearing it in my headphones. I'm not seeing what's going on. I'm just killing time in the sound booth. And I see my boss running up the audience towards me and I'm like, oh shit, what's going on? And it didn't even dawn on me what was going on. And so we came in there and looked at me and hit the kill button on the soundboard. And I just sheepishly apologized, took my stuff, and I was working backstage the rest of the show, and I was done with the soundboard for a while at that job.
I worked in high school. I did production plays and stuff like that. So I did the soundboard for a Twilight Zone play.
Oh, cool.
And I did lights for another one, and those were like the two most stressful jobs I've ever had in a theater production, where I'm just like, oh shit, like I gotta get this cue right, like I gotta make sure these lights are right, and like hit the right cue, and it was a lot of fun, but it was nerve-wracking to like go through and do. So
yeah, for us, our light board was programmable, and they programmed the shit out of it, and all you do is hit the key. It's a next the entire show.
Yeah, ours wasn't that advanced. We had like an array of buttons, so it's like this one's 4 and this one's 5. So
yeah, but on the soundboard, one time for a play, I was a couple of years later, I was running the sound again, which I regret again. I regret. But the director was doing one of the run throughs, and he was like, "All right, well, volume at whatever, higher, lower." He was audibly telling me what to put the volume at for stuff, and fade in, fade out, that kind of whatever thing. And it turned out that I had the gain too high. The board was set up, the gain was too high. So just nudging that soundboard a tiny bit was a huge increase in volume. And he wanted me to fade stuff. And I was just trying with my finger just to roll my finger on this soundboard to try to fade these sound cues in it, like going between 5 and 8% on this soundboard. And I was trying to fade stuff with that kind of a range, and it was stressful as hell because I was trying to match what he wanted. And if I had time, I would have just adjusted the gain and give myself a large range. I could actually fade it. But I didn't. And that's why I'm not a sound engineer.
Neither am I. It's very stressful, especially like recording bands too. It was a lot where it's like, I got to make sure I got the kick snare set up right so I can record it. And then, but oh well, that's why we're doing this now.
Hey, here we are. We're in an audio medium.
Exactly.
That's what we work in.
I know. I will say I'm pretty happy with the production value of our podcast and what I've been able to do. Like when I actually sat down and put my effort into it, because like I've done 4 other podcasts before this one.
Oh, cool.
None of them to this degree of quality, I will say that. But yeah, definitely this is the one where I really wanted to make sure we came out the gate swinging, essentially. Like we had good audio, we had good quality kind of stuff. So, and you guys too. You guys have great audio and quality. You guys are a little bit more, I don't want to say produced, but you have a lot of the sound effects and everything to kind of go along with it, which I think is great. I think it's a nice contrast to what we have going on our end, which is much more, I'd say, kind of free-form-ish tabletop stuff. So
yeah, we're a lot more produced, and that's good and bad. Because there are some people that really that's a turnoff. That sounds more like an audio play as opposed to a live action actual play. So for some people, it sounds like we're not scripted. I mean,
Right.
Other than the beginning, I do a little scripted intro for each of the shows, and I think you do something similar for your show too.
Yep, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's Taylor that I gotta give all the ton. Taylor gets all the credit for how it sounds. And then after Taylor, we got this other guy, Ged, who's a mystery. He's just an enigmatic personality, and he just comes in. He's a fucking genius. He is amazing.
Yeah, you guys, it's definitely noticeable especially the second arc. I have you running, I should say. So your guys' kind of third mission, or second of the main missions, has been a huge jump. So
yeah, and he's just doing some stuff that all of us are like, we're blown away. We're absolutely so excited about what it's his work. We give him all the credit. He's doing a great job.
No, but you guys set him up though. You guys set him up. He dunks it. Kind of basketball analogy. Alley-oop him. So.
I appreciate that. What I like is I'll do a scene and in my mind I was like, yeah, that scene was okay. Like my memory of it is like, yeah, that scene was fine. I would have regrets about how it turned out. And then we'll listen to the playback later on. And I'm like, oh, that actually sounded cool. I didn't realize that. And it's all the audio stuff he's doing or the soundtrack or, whatever it really makes a big difference. And I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, the background music has been, at least for us too. I think for me, it kind of helps add something over some of those lower tones, like noises, because we record in my basement essentially. So if my kids are stomping up above, that mics are going to pick it up. So like, I hope it kind of helps cover some of that house noises essentially. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I like I said, you guys have been doing fantastic. I think we're doing great on our end too. So it's just good to see the high level of quality that's coming out of Delta Green podcasts.
Yeah, it really has.
It's
changed. It's changed a lot over the last 3 years.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think everybody is kind of raising the bar. I feel like as new podcasts come out, people are putting more effort into it. And
I think you have to.
Yeah, and I as a listener, I appreciate it. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what got you into tabletop gaming? Was there like an impetus or like a moment that kind of sparked this like journey into all of what we're doing now?
Yeah, I'm going to take you back to the 1980s. That's how old I am. And I think I was in like 5th or 6th grade. So I don't know if I'm 10, 11 years old. And what I got, I guess I got it in the mail. I don't remember this thing called Olympic Sales Club. Now, if anyone's familiar with this, it's a relic of bygone days where they would get these children to do sales for them. It's what it is. Olympic Sales Club was like, you sell door to door greeting cards and Christmas cards and stuff, and your neighbors and your relatives and people that care about you pay money to this company. The company, sends Christmas cards. You deliver the Christmas cards to your customers, and then you get a cut of the profits. But there's an option. This is kind of how they got you. You could either take like $1 per sale, or you could get these points for prizes. And as a kid, it's a prize catalog. And of course, in the day we had catalogs, right? And for Christmases, birthdays, whatever, there's catalogs, and you would circle stuff, your wish list.
The Christmas catalogs from JCPenney's and all that.
I love that stuff. As a kid, I'm like, so the prize catalog, I'm like, this is great, and there was some great stuff in there. I didn't sell that many Christmas cards. I didn't. And I hated sales. I didn't want to do it, but I wanted ultimately I had some prize points, but not enough for any of the cool stuff.
Mm.
But they had in there something, the red box, the basic red box for Dungeons and Dragons was a prize that was within my meager category. And I'm like, well, what is this? I don't know what this is. If I'm a 10-year-old and I asked my older sister and she's like, oh, I've heard of that. That's a role-playing game. It's fantasy. You fight dragons and you're a knight and whatever. Like, this sounds neat. I want this. And that's what I earned from selling Christmas cards. And it came in the mail and I started reading it, and I had no idea what I was doing. So I asked my older sister, like, do you know anybody that does this? And she knew a guy in high school, because she was in high school and I wasn't, who was a dungeon master, this kid. Right. And she was going to bring him over. Like, I was so excited. So she recruited this kid. I don't even remember this kid's name. And I made a character. And two of my sisters made characters. And somebody else. There's 4 of us. And this guy did a game for us and it sucked. And I remember being grumpy and bitter, like this is nothing like I read about. This wasn't cool. This guy, I didn't like it. And so I was like, I'll do it myself. You know, as an 11-year-old, I'm going to do this myself. I'll figure it out. And like, that's what we did. As a teenager, as a junior high, as a high school student, just my siblings, my relatives, my friends, the neighbors, whatever. We just started making I bought some more books. We started just doing our own games, you know, that's all it's role playing, right? It's make believe.
Right.
And so there was a time when my mother, of course, there was what was it? The Devil Panic or whatever it was about.
The Satanic Panic.
That's it. That happened. That happened in my household. And my mother told us, you know, years later that, oh, you can't have these books anymore. So I basically took them to my dad's house, but they were separated. I took all my books to my dad's house because he didn't care. And then, but I didn't want to wait to only play at my dad's house. So I took, we used to make book covers for our school books. We take.
Yep. I remember that.
Paper bags, you know, like cut them out and you make a cover for all your school books. So I did that with all my Dungeons and Dragons books. And I would write on the cover Star Frontiers, TSR Top Secret, Marvel Superheroes, other games that I was familiar with. And I would still play D&D.
There you go.
I just hid it from my parents. And my mother had no idea what we were doing. She'd ask what we're doing. Oh, we're playing Star Frontiers, Mom. She didn't care. So we played all through high school. I played in college.
Nice.
You know, and then later in college, I got into the White Wolf games, you know, the Vampire, the Masquerade and so forth. And that was my jam in college. But yeah, it was one of those, it's a hobby I uncovered, being a bad salesperson. And I've been doing all my whole life. I love this stuff, man.
Did you ever get into the LARPing side of White Wolf?
I tried it. Okay. I mean, it's because I did some theater. I was a theater kid. Right. And I like, oh, I can do this. You know, I was like, yeah, this is my jam. But when I went to about 3 LARP events in college, and it was so cliquish.
Yes.
It was such a turnoff for me as a new person showing up at LARP. I didn't know anybody. You know, I didn't know how to do it. And there's everything's established. It's all, you know, hierarchy, the social, whatever. And it was hard to get into it because I wasn't a part of that group. And that was a turnoff. So I ultimately stopped doing that.
Yeah. I have a buddy who did it pretty extensively in California. And I remember him just telling me stories of like, there was one kid that would come that nobody liked. So like within the first hour of the game, someone beat him in a contest and killed him, like staked him, and they just left him outside for like 4 hours laying on the ground because his character had been killed. He's like, looking back, it was a dick move, but at the time it was funny. It's like, well, all right. Like, that's I just lived through him telling me these stories of his LARPing. So I don't think I could ever get to that level, but who knows? Yeah.
I mean, it's role playing. And it's live action. I mean, if you enjoy role playing and you're friends with all the other LARPers, and it could be, some people loved it, and that's cool. And games like Vampire really did, lend themselves to LARPing because it's so much social conflict as opposed to physical conflict. So it made sense, but yeah, it just wasn't something that I enjoyed that much in my upbringing.
I get it. So as you've been gaming for this long, I'm assuming you've probably developed a favorite style of game, right? So are you much more into like crunchier style games? Do you like more narrative? Do you try to find a game that has a balance of both? Or do you like just depend on like the group you're running for? Like what's your preference?
So I'm like 100% narrative, but I mean, I love board games. So don't get me wrong. I like board games. I could do a combat sim. I could spend a whole day doing a combat sim, you know, like, you know, with World War II or mechs or whatever, you know. But when it comes to role playing, I like being in character, and I like other people at the table being in character. And oftentimes the crunchiness takes me out, takes all of us out of character. And in those games, the party will kind of step out of character and then kind of out of character, try to find a solution to win the conflict, right? And then they will manage how they want to do the combat from a third-person perspective. And that can be fun, but that's not really my jam.
No, I agree. The more I've gotten into the hobby, I love narrative-focused games or rules-light games in a sense. need a shit ton of rules. Like right now I'm running a Pathfinder 2e game, and it's fun. It's a great system for what they've built it as, but it's like every room has to be a combat. Everything has to be a combat. It's like, it doesn't. We can just not do that. Like, one of the games I'm running for, a couple of the guys, I'm running another system called Warlock for them, which is a very simple, you roll a d20, you add a skill level to it. If you roll above a 20, you succeed. But like our last session was them. It's medieval, kind of Warhammer-esque fantasy, kind of like grimdark. But we had a whole session which was just them operating a mine. They set up a mining base. They're trying to figure out how much ore they could bring out, how many workers they're going to need to hire. They go to town to barter, and it's like, this is a lot of fun. Like, it's like, I hope you guys are having fun, because like, I'm going the direction you guys are. This has whatever you guys want to do, I'm going to enable it. I don't have a story set. We're just going to go with the flow. And yeah, it was a resounding success. It felt like they were getting really kind of into that aspect of it. So
yeah, it's guys, it's hard to quantify, but I've had some great times in games where we're not doing the story necessarily, but we're all invested in a scene. Like the one thing that comes to my mind is, long ago, in my Vampire the Masquerade game, 2 of my characters were Tremere, which I don't generally like, but that's fine. They both want to play Tremere. So like 2 out of 4 people in the party are Tremere. And so I'm like, wow, okay, you guys are in the same chantry, obviously. You guys have the same chantry, leader, and there's the other characters. But the fact that that whole group of characters, the 2 PCs and 2 NPCs, there's 4 of them in this chantry, became a whole sub-story. And that's, we actually would meet separately. I'd have my game, and then I have a separate game night for just the 2 Tremere characters and these 2 NPCs to say they would talk to their boss, what is going on with, and what are we up to? What are we doing? What's our mission? Like the story within the story. Like, what are the Tremere up to? And how does the current story relate to their agenda? And we'd work that out, and we'd spend 2 hours doing these chantry meetings in addition to our regular game. And that was kind of fun. We had a great time in character having these conversations and scheming about what they were up to, as opposed to what the whole party was up to.
That is fantastic. So I guess, do you prefer being like a GM? Do you prefer being a player? What's your favorite aspect when it comes to a game? Like, where do you prefer to be on the table?
I think I prefer to be a GM. Okay. And I'm trying to think of why. It is not because a lot of GMs, and you don't do this. So, I mean, some GMs, they are the story, right? Like, and I've heard actual plays where the GM is telling the story and the player characters are there to participate in the GM's story and to see where the GM's story goes and to witness it, right? Some guys do that. Some guys get there's some very famous guys in the Bay Area where I am, really good DMs that's their deal. That's, they put on a great show, and that's their thing. That's not me.
Right.
I really love to create something and then see what the players want to do with it. But, I've had some wonderful characters that I've just adored playing over the years. So from time to time, when I can sit back and someone else is telling a good story and I've got a character that I love, I can kind of get in there and get crunchy with this, what's up with this guy?
Nice.
So,
okay.
Yeah. So I'm not 100%, but I think most of the time if I had to choose, I'm pretty comfortable in the GM seat.
Yeah, I think GMing for me is my favorite. I just love the reactionary, having to play off of what the group throws at me. I don't know, that's kind of my favorite thing. Just like, oh shit, okay, well, we're going this route now. How do I get out? Like, how do I get the story forward? What's going to be compelling from what we've set now? That's always something I've found a lot easier. And I feel like when I play, I'm thinking about how best to help the GM out and not necessarily focusing on my character. I'm like, well, if I do this, that might like help their story along, or if I go along with this, or like, what can I do to help maximize what they have to help them out behind the screen? Because I know they have a lot going on because I've done it. So I think that's one of the issues I have playing, is because I've done it a whole lot. So
I think we do that. Those of us who are typically GMs when we're players, I think we really do play almost like a GM PC. Oh,
right.
We really I really think about, okay, how am I helping with the story? Like, I unconsciously take certain responsibilities for the story, I guess. And I've seen a lot of GMs that either do that or do the opposite, which is where like, it's finally my chance to be that crazy character I've always wanted to be. And then they play that ridiculous character, you know, that they just never get to play. So GMs can go either way, but yeah, I'm the same as you. I'm always conscientious of what's going on here in addition to what my character's doing.
Yeah, I think it's a good trait. I think it can't be good, it can't be bad. Like, I like it, but I also know, like, well, am I making this decision because this is what the character would do, or am I doing this because I think it fits into what the GM's story is right now? So it's something I'm going to have to work on with Misha running the next game of, like, focusing on, you know, okay, I have my character, I'm building him to act this way and trying to reinforce that that's how he's going to be. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
But
and I think something that we do, those of us that are GMs most of the time, is I don't think we take a main character role either. At least I never try to take the main character
No, me either. I've always liked support classes, like when I play, like, let's say WoW or something like that. I love supporting. Like, I don't want to be the main character. If I have to play a class in D&D, I'll play a cleric or something that can heal or buff. Like, that's just always been kind of what I prefer to do. I'd rather let other people shine and make sure they're there to do damage than be the person doing it myself. So,
yeah, it sounds good.
Are you running any other games at this moment?
Yeah. So, I guess we haven't talked. Let me start the top down. So, I mean, the podcast that I do is Stories and Lies, and that's kind of my primary. It's something that we do twice a month. So we meet online and do our sessions twice a month, record those sessions, and then put out a new episode every week. So that's my main thing. I have one other game that I run on a monthly basis, and that's in person. So nice. And that's something that started thankfully after COVID.
Okay.
Because that's a whole other story. But and my other game used to be Delta Green. I had a group of players doing Delta Green in person, and this summer we switched to Call of Cthulhu to do Masks of Nyarlathotep.
Nice.
So I've been doing that since since June. So once a month we meet like for 5-6 hours at a time and do a huge chunk of the game, and then it's 4 weeks off. So but that's been a lot of fun, and I love those players. I don't know if they're going to listen. Maybe they'll listen to this at some point. Maybe I'll remind them. But that particular group of players is like the most organized, prepared group of players I've ever seen. Like, and they are just on top of everything. They take great notes. They scheme. They plan. They work at a game. They're working on stuff. They put together this amazing jam board of clues because Masks is a huge campaign. And so one of my players created this. It looks like one of those conspiracy boards. It's like 12 pages, 12 screens worth of clues linked to each other and all over every single area of the world, the timeline, all this stuff organized. And as I read through it, I'm like, I can't believe there's that much information so far in the story they've cataloged it, organized it, sorted it out, linked things together. Like, they're doing a fantastic job. It kind of makes my job both easier and kind of raises the bar too, you know. You're like,
no, absolutely. I
gotta be on it with these guys. So that's cool.
That's how I feel about the podcast group. I mean, we started running Pathfinder 2E, and we have a group chat, and they created a subgroup chat where they just talk about their plans for their characters going into each session.
That's cool.
What they're trying to do. I was like, I love this. I love that you guys are like getting these battle plans ready for these fights and whatnot, because I do my best not to use whatever. Like, I'll make a tactic, and that's what I'm going to stick to. I don't try to, they don't know these characters. They don't know that this guy's got really high AC. They see a little guy in armor, like, okay, kind of thing. But, no, it's awesome when you get that kind of group. And I really want to try Call of Cthulhu. I pitched it to the group before we did Delta Green of maybe going that route instead, but once they played Delta Green, they didn't want to play anything else, which I don't blame them. So
yeah, and I came to Delta Green through Call of Cthulhu, so that was was my entry point, and that was years ago. I was playing Call of Cthulhu, and I guess I don't know if we're on that point of the interview or not. Should I talk about that now or later? I don't know.
Go for it. Do what you want.
Because I had a little experience with Call of Cthulhu in college, like a little bit. Because one guy in my group knew the game and ran it for us a couple times, and it was always like horror story. It was horror stories, is what it was. It was, we all uncover something really ridiculously awful, and it kills half the party. That kind of story.
Sounds about right.
And we're all normal people. You know, that was kind of the fun part. After playing vampires and mages and werewolves or fantasy, whatever, we're not heroes. We're just, you know, I'm the postman. You know, my buddy is an art collector. You know, this person over here is the baker, whatever. And we uncover some creepy stuff in our neighborhood. And at the end of the story, half the party is dead. The rest of us are running and never talking about this again. But, I started playing Call of Cthulhu again, before my daughter was born. And she was, so 2014 is when I stopped. After she was born, I had to pretty much stop role playing for a while. Yeah, cause you know what that's like, right?
Yep, I know what that's like.
So for a couple of years before that, I was playing a weekly Call of Cthulhu game, you know, in person, you know, kitchen table, you know what I mean? So, and I had a wonderful character I enjoyed who was a private detective. So it's completely, with the genre, you know, nothing unusual.
Oh, I was that.
You know, and that was fun. It was a lot of this linked investigations, you know, pretty tame stuff. So then, but unfortunately that game broke up because, you know, I was busy. And then later on, what was it, 5-6 years ago? I don't remember. 5 years ago, maybe. A buddy of mine was doing a Call of Cthulhu game on Twitch.
Okay.
You know, like live streaming a Call of Cthulhu game. And then the game had broken up early on, like 8 episodes in. There was problems. Half the actors, or players or whatever left. They wanted to reboot it. And so I was able to convince them to let me join the cast. So for 2 years, I was doing that, like on Twitch, every Saturday night, which my wife hated. Yeah, obviously, my family hated. Every Saturday night, I'm gone. You know, I'm not at home. Yeah. So they couldn't. She's stuck with my kid, you know, and there's nothing we could be doing, no fun stuff, whatever. So that was an issue. But that was something I did for about 2 years, you know, on camera, you know, Call of Cthulhu. That was fun. A different experience.
Yeah, I feel like live I tried doing, well, I shouldn't say I tried. I was part of a friend who tried to relaunch his podcast as a live Twitch stream. And we were doing it. We started playing Dungeon World, which I don't know if you ever played Dungeon World. It's powered by the apocalypse, kind of simplified D&D. And it was a lot of fun. It was, you know, I think we got 3 or 4 episodes that we did. But yeah, the same thing was that weird, like, I have young children, and they're going to pop into the screen every once in a while, because, like, I have to be upstairs where they're at to watch them. I can't just disappear when this is happening. So yeah, like, I think one of the episodes we were recording, like, our Christmas tree fell over upstairs, because it was around, I'm like, I gotta go take care of a tree real quick, I'll be right back, and just, like, ran upstairs. It was bad. My wife was here, but, like, yeah, like, she can't lift, it was a mess, but, yeah, it's weird, though, like, I always felt... There's definitely a much more pressure when you're doing it live in front of people. Like, I don't know if it was just me, but, like, I got to make sure if I'm going to say something, I want to make sure it's witty or funny or fits with everything that's going on. Like, I don't want to flub a line or anything like that. So there was an added pressure onto myself, which I don't necessarily think was warranted, but it was definitely something that was there in my head.
Yeah, it's there. It's there because if you got a live audience, you have to you're entertaining. You're on screen to entertain. You're not necessarily on screen just to role play. It's not the same experience that you have at home, where you can relax, you can enjoy the at home games are much more relaxing, like way more relaxing. That when you're on camera, on screen in a fixed time frame, and there's an audience there, you've got to bring your A game and bring your energy,
right? And
like the whole time you know, and just be happy, be excited, whatever. Oh, get it dramatic.
Exactly.
So, and that it was a good experience. It was like put on a play. That's how I felt, you know.
I could see that, yeah.
But yeah, it was
essentially that type.
Yeah, so that was, but different style, you know.
Yeah, even like recording like the podcast and whatnot. If we don't necessarily do takes. Like if I screw something up, I'm just like blah, 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 and I'll probably like erase the first part where I screwed up and start again. But I'm not like, all right, we're gonna stop. We're gonna redo that scene. We don't try to do anything like that. But there'll definitely be points where I will flub a word or, you know, stuff like that. But like, all right, let me try that again. Because I would do that in a home game too. Like, if doing an introduction to a scene and I screw it up, it's like, all right, let's start over. Let's try this again where I don't screw it up, kind of thing. So,
I think one of the questions you asked or wanted to ask me about was the whole difference between doing a podcast and doing a home game, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, how do you approach them?
Yeah. while the podcast, you know you're being recorded. You know you're recording it. So I have a little bit more pressure to get it right. But if we don't get it right, we're doing it live. It has that feel to it. Even though we could rewind and do it again. We don't, I guess, for better or for worse. Because there's times when, like, the day after, I'll be like, oh, I wish I would have done it this other way.
Absolutely.
It would have been so much cooler if I said X instead of Y, but it is what it is. But I do try when I'm doing a game to kind of, be more focused, like, mentally, and I have less notes for my podcast stuff than I do for my home game or my in-person game. Like, for my in-person game, I got the books, I've got all my notes, I got all those references, and I can just stop and say, hey, let me look that up. And I'll pull the source book out. We'll look it up. We'll figure out what the rule is. I don't want to do that when I'm recording. So, and I kind of, I simplify it as much as I can. I wing it, and I try to just keep the story going.
Yeah, that's kind of how I approach it. Like, I've been talking with Misha because she's running her first. She's going to run the next, I guess, arc mission. I don't know if we're going to call it the season. We haven't really figured that part out yet. But she's like, how many notes do you have for, like, this mission? Like, the mission we're currently on. I'm like, I don't know, maybe like 2 or 3 pages. Like, I really just have, here's what they're trying to do. Here are the key players. Here are some locations. Here's, like, if this happens, then this, then this. Here's their goal. And then just kind of sprinkle in where it makes sense for you guys to find information. Like, obviously, I have some key places designated, and I'll have clues there. But if you guys pull something that's clever, then I'll give you the clue where you find it. But if you miss it, you miss it. Like, that's kind of how it goes. But
oh yeah. It's thing we have to keep track of is we have to keep our character names consistent, right?
Yes.
And there's the timeline of events prior to the start of the story. The backstory has got to be. You got to have that locked in. You got to know what that is. And if you know that what happened in all these sequences, because your clues always relate to what happened in the past. It's bouncing back. And then any numbers, locations, whatever. There's details. I always have to write the details down because I can't remember those.
Yeah, me too.
And then during the game, I just keep a notepad and I keep track of, it's 10 a.m. It's 11 a.m. It's 12:30. And then if I make up a name, I just write on my notepad, oh, this is the name of NPC I just made up, so I can hopefully remember them in the future.
Yeah. I like, because when we record, like, we'll actually have the person leave the room, so I have to be like, Jake scene, and then write all the stuff from there, and then, like, Misha and Cody scene, and then have everything there that they do in their scene. So I'm like, okay, you talk to this, that's you, this person's your NPC. Okay, cool. So. That
is so much harder because your players leave the room,
Yeah, they go outside on my front porch.
Yeah,
till we're back in the game.
Which is that's I guess that's fun. I mean, that could be a fun experience and not knowing what happens.
Yeah, I think to me, like the player Jake, he takes it very seriously. Like not knowing, like he won't listen. Like I guess I should say. So whenever we record, I will post the raw, unedited episodes up for everybody in the podcast to go back and listen to, just because we record every month. So if they want, they're there so they can listen and get caught up. And he'll listen to them, and as soon as he leaves the room, he skips forward until he hears himself again. So he doesn't know anything else that happens while he's not there. And I really respect that dedication from him. It's like, hell yeah, man. Fuck yeah. So.
Yeah, I've had games like that where as GM or as a player that we players, take the game, or the GM takes somebody out of the room, or there's secret notes happening. But I guess with my group for the Stories and Lies podcast, there's only 3 players, and the nice thing is those 3 guys are all GMs, which is a wonderful benefit that I have. Like all 3 guys I work with are all game masters on their own. They have plenty of experience running games, and they're really good at keeping in character, out of character separate. And,
absolutely.
And they
100% say
they just enjoy watching the other guys role play. So they'll hang out there for 20 minutes or whatever it takes sometimes, while the other players are role playing, and they just sit back quietly, observe, and have a great time. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say, you guys, everybody's characters on that show has such a level of depth to them. It's like you're waiting for whatever's going to come out. Like, you're like, we got a little bit of the backstory in, like, mission 2. So it's like, okay, well, is mission 4 going to be someone else's backstory? That's kind of where I'm excited to see as we learn more about these characters. As for you running the game, you're adapting Call of Cthulhu scenarios, right?
Yeah,
is that my understanding?
That's what I've been doing so far.
Okay.
And it's for couple different reasons. One of which is there are so many more Call of Cthulhu stories than Delta Green.
Right.
I have a broader choice, and I'm trying to find a certain type of story. And if I don't find it in Delta Green, which is often the case, I'll look elsewhere for it. Additionally, since we're placing our stories in the 90s, there's only a couple Delta Green stories that are canon stories that take place in the 90s, and none of them fit what I wanted to do. So
okay.
I went straight to some Call of Cthulhu ones and just adapted those. And I've been adapting. The more I do this game, the more I adapt. When I first started running it, I stayed really close to the original scenarios. I'm like a crutch. I didn't feel confident in adapting it.
Right.
And then as I do it more and more, I get more and more confident. And, of course your players, your players will bend these and break these scenarios anyway.
Exactly. That's what is that process like converting over? Like, when you find a story, what's like, obviously some of the roles are going to be different because there's not as many skills in Delta Green as Call of Cthulhu, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Call of Cthulhu has like the degrees of success, where that's not Delta Green. But when you're looking at it, are you looking for like those type of scenarios that, I guess, are you worried about the roles that they're going to have to make, or the NPCs, or are you more focused on what's going to like be a compelling thing? And when you're looking at like the I don't want to say the monster, but like the gotcha moments or whatnot, how are you looking at that as to adapt into what you have going on already?
Yeah,
you've obviously got some sort of narrative you're playing into.
Yeah.
So how do you adapt those?
So here's what I'm doing. I don't care about the stats. I'll use them from time to time if they're interesting, but I really look at, I'll start with Ladybug as an example. That was the first story we did. And I think people are fairly familiar with that story. I don't know if I'm spoiling it or not. Maybe I am. I'll try to be as vague as I can. How about that? So I don't.
That works.
Too spoiler. But, there is a story to Ladybug. It is, this is the original inciting incident is this kidnapping. And the players are, for the most part, your story it's a kidnap story. And there's a lot of motivations behind the scenes. Why did it happen? And what's really going on? Those are the questions that players are exploring. So I kept that, the bones of it, the kidnapping, the backstory I kept, right? And then a lot of the antagonists or NPCs I kept pretty much as written. And then with all that in place, the world is in place, I then say, I want to design my own entry point. My entry point is this. So instead of the players being police officers, who are investigating the kidnapping of this girl, I made them people that were connected to the dead body of the kidnapper, as opposed to the girl, and they're there to cover it up. That's their entry point is, my players are there to cover this up. And along the way, they kind of get guilted into, we'll help find this girl. All right.
Okay.
And so they brought themselves in. The scene kind of plays that way anyway. I can't imagine they wouldn't. And they got themselves in that investigation. They got themselves in the kidnapping investigation. But the whole time, as players, their objective isn't really to help the police. It's, we got to cover this up. And then they find out what's really going on. They're like, okay, now we got to stop this.
Right.
So they're on that page. And then there's a series of events that the scenario lays out, and I kept those pretty close to the canon. I embellished some things. I changed the timeline. I changed the locations. But I will change anything that I don't like. Anything that doesn't fit, I'll change it. Stats included. Like if I think somebody's stats are wrong, I don't care. I'm the GM. I'll change it.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
So, and my next story is more. I did a lot more revising. I don't want to spoil that one.
Oh no, absolutely not.
Yeah. But I took the bones. I take the bones and the setup, and then I find a way to create my entry point, create my own motivations. I keep most of the NPCs generally, and I just let's see what happens. Let's see what the players want to do.
Yeah, I think I ran Extremophilia, and I think that was my first time running Delta Green. I'm going to do this scenario.
Cool.
For a home group. And I know you ran that on one of your previous shows too.
Yeah. So so I guess I'll talk about that. So 2 years ago, well, I'll go back up. I used to be on a podcast that I helped make this thing. So I shouldn't be like, I helped make this thing. Redacted Reports is the home game I was running with my players during COVID. And we weren't meeting in person. It was COVID. We were meeting that's all we had. We were all on the computer.
Right.
We're playing online. And it was one of those things where one of the players, who now runs the podcast, she's like, this is a great game. We should record it. That was her idea. We should record it. This is a great game. We're all, yeah, this is cool. And we all got on board with that idea. And then we recorded it, but we continued to meet online. This is like the late 2020 when we're recording this stuff, and this is when the world is all shut down or it's just starting to reopen, but that's how we did it. It came out, I think, January 2021, I believe, is when it started being released. But the first story was Extremophilia that I did. And I was pretty close to the original scenario. I did a couple minor changes, but I hewed really close to that story and just let them let them explore it. Let them lead it where it wants to go.
Yeah. The only thing I really changed was I had the Benthic Corporation. Spoiler alert for those who haven't done Extremophilia. I changed like the lady they met to essentially be the daughter of the bad guys for the next like missions I'm running for my home game. That's cool. So essentially that led into this flashback where they played earlier characters back in the 60s investigating this cult that turned out that 3 of the leaders became ghouls and then they took new identities. So then one of the missions was going to Colorado to track down the ghoul who had created this kind of like utopia community, like town that I based roughly off of Hot Fuzz.
That's cool.
So like everything was super nice and peachy keen, but then there was that sinister undertone that whatnot. And then right now they're in the final leg of it where they're fighting. Essentially, I made Predator in Delta Green. Like they're in the jungles or not the jungles, but they're in the woods of Michigan investigating this other brother. And there's some sort of watcher over this farm that's essentially a predator, and the group has to face off against. So,
that reminds me. Are you familiar with Viscid?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
I haven't run it. I think I looked at it. I think Jake has mentioned running it too. So like I'm trying not to read it, but I'm aware of it. Yeah.
Because it's got a bug hunt element to Viscid. Okay. I don't want to spoil, but I had a lot of fun running that game with my in-person group where they're all program agents. And so they have absolutely no qualms with calling the programmer like, hey, we need help. Mm-hmm. They're like, we need backup. They're all investigators. Like they're all their archetypes. None of them are special ops. Every single one of my characters in our old home game were investigators. So when they first discovered the bug hunt, and there's a couple in Viscid, they like, we can't capture this. Capture was the fun part. They're like, we're program agents. We're going to capture it. We want to capture this. And, and the program's like, yeah, we're on board. We'll send some specialists to capture it for you, And so the Blue Fly guys show up, they do their thing, they bag it, everything is nice. And then they're like, all right, go back to your investigation, figure out, the source, figure this thing out. And along the way, they tracked another one down. And so instead of me just doing that, I said, all right, I gave them all NPCs. I prepared these special operator characters for you. Each of you pick one character sheet. Here they are. You can choose who's the sniper, who's the scout, who's we all had roles. You guys go get this one. This one's for you to get.
Oh, that's cool. And
so they had to then try to play these special operators in like the forest, like on the edge of Yellowstone, I think it is. We're like Idaho, Montana, that area. Mm-hmm. And I set a really wonderful trap up for them and ended up killing the whole party. And I was very proud of myself. As a note, just between us and anyone who's listening, like fallen trees and logs are really dangerous. Like really dangerous. And and so I basically had them operating in an area where there was a bunch of forest fires and a bunch of trees were all over the place. So it's a difficult environment, difficult terrain. There's logs everywhere for cover. And then I would just have the creature basically throwing and knocking these logs into the players.
Oh, geez.
You can't dodge that. They couldn't dodge it, and they were trying. They were just they had a bad time.
Yeah, that's kind of what happened with the group at home. They started trying to sweet talk their way into the church, which was run by ghouls, and then they got caught taking photos when they shouldn't have. So they're like, yeah, totally, come on downstairs, we'll show you all this stuff, blah, 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 blah. And as soon as they get in the room, the ghouls eat them, and then I had the ghouls perform the ritual to, like, take over their, like, basically turn them into ghouls.
Yep.
I'm like, all right, you two are going to try to get the other two agents now. Let me know when you decide to do this. And it was so good. Oh, I loved it. I'm glad that everybody at the table was okay with that. Like, nobody got super pissed off. Mm-hmm. Just like, I fucking do it. I knew you were a ghoul. So, go for it.
I'm really impressed that in your game, the last story that you were telling, one of your player characters was hit by the withering spell and was just killed. Like, you just killed the player.
Yeah.
Like, all right, damage is X amount. It's more than your hit points. You're dead.
Yeah. That spell is gnarly.
There's no saving throw. There's no dodge. There's nothing. It's like, you're dead. And that player was cool with it. He was like, all right, that's a great death. He's the whole time. I was impressed.
It's one of those things where if they would have known that they were witches or going into it, I probably would have given some sort of a save or whatnot. But since it was just kind of like, it happened. Like, so I'm very happy with, they were cool with it too. Cause we talked afterwards. I'm like, you're cool with that, right? He's like, oh yeah, totally. Like, let's do it. I'm like, all right, awesome. Like, I'm glad you're okay with this. So
yeah, that was pretty cool.
So I have to get going here shortly. So I wanted to ask you one more question. What do you like to do in your free time when you're sitting at home, when you're away from the work, you're not doing podcasts? What's a couple things you like to do?
As little as possible. So I've got a kid. So a lot of my free time, unfortunately, as a parent, is my kids' time, right?
Yes.
We do a lot of, and when I'm at work, and then when I'm at home, I got a window of time that's kind of family time. And then when the kid finally is asleep or whatever, then I can do my own thing. So, I mean, I watch basketball when I can.
Nice.
I like movies. I play a couple of computer games, but mostly stuff that's turn-based or things I can turn off easily. Kind of slower stuff that doesn't demand my attention, not, first-person shooters or whatever. So, I do a little reading in the evenings, but not as much as I used to. But I think mostly for me is a lot of unplugging. I kind of I feel like I like to unplug, unwind, do as little as possible when I can. So
I get it. Yeah. I don't know the full extent of your job, but it seems like it's probably a pretty demanding one. So I understand probably wanting to get out and shut off and not have to deal with stuff.
I mean, I like to travel. I like to do vacations, things like that too. But yeah, when I do get some free time, it's mostly the enjoying my time as unstressfully as possible. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I try to. Most of my downtime is like reading rule books, or I started the second Annihilation book, so I've been trying to power through that. And then I finally watched a movie for the first time in like 2 months, which I was pretty proud of myself. It's like, I'm going to start a movie. I haven't done this in a long time, so. Yeah. The wife and I will watch movies. We watch them in parts. We don't get to watch the whole movie. But as a note for reading, like for this current story I'm doing for Stories and Lies, it involves the King in Yellow mythos. So I did spend a lot of time in the last 3 or 4 months doing reading, like in my free time, kind of catching up on all the old King in Yellow stories, and all the old ways that mythos has been portrayed, and I did a lot of that because it's nighttime reading actually, which was terrible for because I'm trying to focus on this. Some stories are more modern, but a lot of them are 100 years old kind of stories. Yeah, a lot of at least the King in Yellow one is all pretty old school.
Yeah, so I've finally stopped reading that, and so I think I might go back to reading more. Sometimes I read like Masks of the Night on Thotep before I go to bed, just kind of keep it constant because I'm running that game. And that's 2 books. If you ever run that.
Wow.
I think it's like 500 pages between the 2 books. Whew. It's huge. It's a huge collection. On top of that, there's a whole bunch of NPCs, a ridiculous number.
That being a lot.
And there's a bunch of items that I've been trying to focus on now, books and items and things that I'm trying to get my mind around because my players found a bunch of books, and now I have to
know what they do.
Do the whole. All right, this book is about this story. This book looks like this. This, and they have questions about the author, the whatever, and I have to deal with all that stuff.
Yeah. So anything that they can try to get a clue from.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think most of mine is like systems I want to run, or like so right now, a peek behind our curtain. Misha's going to run the next set of like missions. I think it's going to be just one mission, and then I think I'm going to go back to taking over. Jake has mentioned maybe running Viskid. Cool. So I gave a poll to the podcast folks of like, hey, what do you want me to run next? Like, let's figure out what type of game you're interested in. Like, here's what I want to run, like a sci-fi game, a mech game. I had this idea for like a globe-trotting kind of Indiana Jones style game, where they would have to like stop like Nazis and stuff like that. So I just threw it out to them. I was like, just pick one or two that you think is interesting. And there's a 3-way tie between sci-fi, mechs, and globetrotting. So I'm like, well, shit. I guess now I got to figure out which of those systems I want to do. But
that means
so it's just like
one player voted for each of those 3 things, right?
Yep. So I'm just like, okay, maybe I should get more people to vote, and then we'll go that route and see what they have to say.
You should do ranked choice. That's what you should do. Ranked choice voting.
Yeah. I got to figure out something. Because, so I've been reading like Stars Without Number a lot more, because that's kind of the sci-fi system I think I want to do. That or Traveler, but I need to read Traveler more. But so I'm just trying to get refreshed with these systems. Like, will this make compelling stories?
Yeah.
Is this something that the players are going to like? You know, because I tried running Stars Without Numbers for a group before, and nobody liked it. They all thought it was... they were coming from 5e, so they have no powers, and all of this stuff was a really big change for them. But I think this group will be good with it now that they're been used to Delta Green and all that. So we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah, one thing about Traveler, of course, is it's got the it's famous for the character generation system.
Oh yeah,
and it's nice because once someone goes through that with their character, you feel really attached to this character that you've lived with, through this whole process, and that's a great way to get that game.
I think that's kind of a compelling part. Like Twilight 2K does that as well. Like, you start at 18 and you have all these life moments, and so I kind of want to do a system like that. But obviously, Twilight 2K, I think, hits a little too close to home with all of the real-world things going on right now. So I don't think running that's probably the best idea. With
the war in Ukraine, it's really close to home.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, I want to say thank you for taking your time to sit down and talk with me. We should do this again, because I'd like to get to know you more, because you and I have known each other like on Discords. Like, I think we originally kind of talked with each other, at each other on the Pretending to Be People board. And then obviously with
what was that podcast? I feel so Sleeping Low.
Yeah, you and I, and that's why I think we both kind of talked about launching a podcast at the same time there. Mm-hmm. And so and obviously now your guys' Discord and whatnot, and then so it's been good to like get to actually sit down and put a face to the name, talk with you, get to know you a little better, because I've known of you and I know that we've talked in the past about certain things, but yeah, I think you guys are doing a fantastic job over on Stories and Lies. I know that we're kind of podcast brethrens or brothers. Like, we launched at the same time, essentially. I don't know if we started recording at the same time. We started in like September before we launched, so we had about 12 episodes saved up. But I'm really excited to see where you guys are going to go, and I'm hoping you guys have continued success, because I think you guys deserve it with everything you got going on. So,
all right, thank you, Chris. I really appreciate that, and it's been fun because we started on the same day. We did. Yep. And we've released on the same day. And it's been a neat little kind of journey with the two of our shows going kind of side by side. So,
absolutely.
And I really like that. I mean, there's not a rivalry. I like that we're kind of all in this together. And that makes me feel good. I don't feel like this, I don't want to compete with other people's. We all have a game that we love, and we like to share our games with other people. And and there's room in this community, for many different shows or experiences or stories to be told, and it's great.
Yeah, there's no reason that there should ever be animosity towards like anybody doing this stuff. Like, we're all doing the same thing. Why wouldn't we want, like, if you're like I have you guys in our show notes, hey, if you like what we're doing, check out these guys, check out this, like, whatnot. Like, there's no reason for it to be a competition. We're all in the same space. I'd rather us all work together and be cool with each other and collaborate than be like an asshole to people. That's just not my nature. Like, I don't got time for that.
Yeah.
Let's build up with positivity and build a community instead of pushing everybody away.
Yeah, I agree. I appreciate that. That's really cool.
Yeah, of course. So, yeah, we'll talk again. I don't know if you have social media or if you want to give any of that shit out. I don't know if that's something that matters to you, but if you want to plug yourself, feel free.
I don't do much anymore. I was on Twitter, but now that it's X, I've stopped using it, and I haven't fully picked another platform, I guess.
Okay.
So I mostly just check into the Discord. I'm there all the time. So if people want to find us there, I know people if you don't use Discord, you should. It's a great platform.
It's awesome.
Free. You can do everything you want with it. So you can find us, we're Stories and Lies, you can find our show, or, I'm sure that's probably easier to find me. I don't know. In the world of the internet, I'm sure it's really easy to find people, or Chris can put you in touch with me if that's the thing you want.
I'll have you guys linked in our show notes. So check our show notes if you want to check out their show. You guys have, at the time of this release, probably you'll be close to the end of your third mission, if not the fourth, if I have this all timed out. But we'll talk about that later.
Well, it depends on when you release this. That's exactly the mystery. Yeah, but
I will.
Yeah, we're close to finishing in real time our story, but the release is about 2 months behind.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think when this is released, it'll probably be smack in the middle of that. But yeah. So again, thank you for your time today, Tom, and I'll talk with you later, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. It was great being here.